I was lucky enough to be at the Blues Awards last week, and he just cleaned up. Forward of the year, Player of the Year, which is always a big one because it shows, I suppose, what he is like as a teammate, and then the overall Player of the Year as well. It's been a phenomenal year for Anton Segner. Like, he's done his time, and now he's got consistent time at number 7, where we had seen him at 6, and maybe he felt like a smallish 6. We've seen him at 7, and I think week on week, it's hard to argue that he's possibly the formed guy.
Well, you think about how well Dalton Papali'i was playing, and then Anton Segner moving into that 7 jersey. He really has helped shore up that gap. He's been tremendous, and it's always a fascinating question, this one, because it's just a position, the loose forward positions. We always seem to have so many good players, and you look around the country, young Casey, I just think, gosh, he's got some star quality, that guy as well. But to me, Segner, you look at his numbers, the meters after contact, strong carries, he's really learnt to use his body and his power very effectively. And it's got to the point now, I'd be surprised if he wasn't in the All Blacks for the start of the year, even for the early part of the year. I think he's played his way into contention, but it's other strings to his defence is very good. His tackle stats are good, really good.
High completion rate.
And as I say, that line-out game that he's really developed, and he has definitely been, in a Blues team that's kind of fired in fits and starts a bit this year, he has been consistently outstanding.
Brenna, what have you made of Segner, and where do you see him maybe in comparison to the other open sides around, possibly being that guy who's in there, knowing that Ardie's going to come back into the squad as well?
Yeah, look, I think he's going to probably fit to a similar around Dalton Papali'i. I think when he was, in the All Blacks, being able to play consistently as that second 7. Now, I know probably Ardie Savea, they see him as a 7 with Sam Cane leaving. So you'd have to think that, I think for Anton, the way that he has played, it's been an out-and-out 7. Now, he has the ability and the flexibility to cover 6 and 8, but I think his best position, and with what we've seen at the Blues this year, has been at number 7. And we've always known that he's a very good jackler. I think he's probably the best jackler in the competition, especially in New Zealand, getting the ball back. He's so efficient in that space. But the one area that I've really enjoyed him this year is his attacking side with ball in hand. And like, if you do look at some of the stats here, I think it's more so, I know he's played probably the most minutes. He's played over 900 minutes for the Blues this year, which adds to his consistency that he's been able to be on the field. But carrying over the gain line, he's 74%, which in test level is very, very important, Ross. We've touched around getting over the advantage line with these loose forwards, and that actually surprised me. Now, I know that he has improved in that area, but that really surprised me with that efficiency rate of being 74%, because the next person there is Lasanga, who's at 84, but probably hasn't played as much minutes. And the rest of the group that they have there is around 60, 55, 58. So very, very good on the attacking side of the ball, getting it over the advantage line. So, yeah, I think with his form, the way he has been playing, I think he's a non-negotiable TJ with the way that he has played this year. He's done it for a long time. He's still a young man, 24, I believe. So, yeah, there's a lot to go. And I think Lucas Casey as well. I know he's not going to get another opportunity to be able to play, but geez, I've loved watching him play. He is a rare breed, I think, of, I don't want to put any names, I won't put it out there, but yeah, I want to see more of him play. I don't want to put any more pressure on him, because I think there is a lot that's coming his way, and I agree with him. There's just so much potential with TJ, and I almost want to see him play more with how he has played.
I will chuck a name in, and it probably for the younger people watching won't mean so much, but for older people it will, and that's Ian Kirkpatrick, because Ian Kirkpatrick was a guy that I idolised when I was growing up, and he was a flanker for the All Blacks who, when he got the ball, it was just this combination of athleticism, power, and just the ferocity of the carry. And I think that's what Lucas Casey's doing, is that he's learning that when he really brings that ferocity, he is hellishly hard to stop. And even poor old Damien McKenzie, copping that, trying to tackle him. Look what happened there. But I don't know, probably one for the future. You think particularly if they go to South Africa, it's no place for the faint-hearted, and experience is such an important thing. And I think you can't just write off the credentials of people like Jacobson, for example, because he's got, again, the ability to play multiple positions. He's hard, he's tough, he's experienced. Those are the sorts of attributes when you're going to South Africa, really important. And of course, Peter Luckey's been part of the frame. I mean, we are blessed at the moment. And look at Braden Yossi, the game that he had for the Hurricanes. I mean, he is an outstanding talent. Christian Leo-Willie. So many options there, and unfortunately, only so many vacancies. So it's. I mean, you know, when Dave Rennie looks at all his stats and puts them into his whatever it is, algorithm or whatever, or into his brain, and it all spits out. It's just going to be fascinating to see who comes in, who stays in, maybe who exits. I don't know. It's just something, as I say, for some reason, and maybe it's because kids like playing flanker or loose forward or number 8 or whatever. Yeah. But we just always seem to have so many good options there.
Yeah. When I made this list, went through the stats, and you know, you had Segner, you had obviously, I mean, some of these guys aren't necessarily available this year, but you had to include them as a point of comparison. Segner, Papali'i, Karifi, Blackadder has made a massive impact since coming back for the Crusaders. You know, when you look at his dominant contact stats, particularly on defence, they're off the charts in comparison to the other number 7s. He's really abrasive, and in South Africa, those kind of things work. I know he kind of fell out of contention. He's had some injury woes and all those kind of things, but he's a guy, I think, in a 44 who could be super effective there, given the way he plays the game against South Africa, Brenner.
Well, it is, and this is why we brought TJ on, because he navigates us and brought us back, because I got excited with these 2 young guys coming through with debutants, but you talked around the names like Larkai, Blackadder, guys that have been there, Karifi, you know, Jacobson as well, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think with the 44, whatever the squad that is going to be named, like, I think we might see a few people that might be like an Anton Segner that does get involved in that as an example, but I think when it comes to these test matches, having your war horses, especially against the South Africans in the physicality area, you're having guys like your Jacobson, who is like iron shoulders and has played well for a very long time and knows what it is and what it feels like to be over in South Africa. Because let's be honest here, like this 4 test matches, and I know we're playing one in America, this is probably going to be the hardest test for a lot of these players in their career to date. Like, I know a World Cup is the pinnacle, but playing South Africa right now, the number 1 team, how they are playing at the moment, you want players that are proven and have a pretty good understanding of what it is to play South Africans, the fact we're going to play them 4 times. So that's the best thing about that coaching group. It's finding a balance of youth, but then also having the experienced players of what you need in these test matches to be able to go there and try and do something that, you know, it's going to be pretty tough going over there to win a test match series against the South Africans.
I know you're saying we haven't talked about Leicester Fainga'anuku, but I think if you read between the lines on what Dave Rennie said in the last few weeks, he considers him more of a left winger who has the ability to play in the loose. It was pretty clear that that's what he says. And then when you look at the stats, it's difficult with Leicester because he's defended so much this year at centre. He's going to have a whole bunch more missed tackles and things like that because of that position and the way people get on the outside. So there were some interesting things though, because I would have thought that, you know, referring to that stat that Bryn said earlier, that Leicester Fainga'anuku's dominant carries in comparison to Anton Segner would be off the charts. But his are way lower than Anton Segner's dominant carries because they use him more as a ball player and less as probably just a straight up, you know, get it over the advantage line guy.
Well, 2 things. Firstly, I'd be fascinated to break down those stats into what they were when he was playing in the backs and what they've been when they've been playing in the forwards, because I think that's the key to it. The second thing, I was a little bit surprised to hear Dave Rennie say that, because to me, we got here a ready-made counter to the bomb squad, or a potential counter to the bomb squad, where the South Africans could go in with a 7-1 split or a 6-2 split. If you've got a guy in there who can do, and I don't doubt that he will do many of the things that you need of a loose forward in Test rugby, I think for a long time the jury was out, and it was like, can he sustain this? And it was really interesting. I remember early on in the year doing a radio interview with James Marshall, and they'd picked Leicester at centre, and I said to him, what do you see his position as, centre or wing? And he said, no, we see him as a flanker. And I sort of, you know, I knew he'd played there a little bit in France, but next week they put him in there, and has been so eye-catching, so compelling. But as I say, I'd love to see that breakdown. But to me, getting back to it, so you've got a guy who can cover wing and centre very well, but can also play at 7, I think potentially at number 8 too, with that explosive speed of his. That allows you a 6-2 split if he's one of the 6. And then you have a backup, say halfback, say a Hotham or a Ratama or whoever at your backup halfback, and whoever it's going to be, and I don't want to light a fire under something, but is it Barrett, is it McKenzie, is it whoever in that, or Ruben Love as your backup 5/8 stroke fullback, that allows you the luxury of a guy who can be almost equally effective now as a back or as a forward, and it gives you that counter to a degree to what the Springboks are likely to throw at you.
Whether or not he's an open side flanker or a number 8 at test level is interesting, because he doesn't hit the rucks in the same way. He's not maybe as effective in the way that the other open side flankers play, Brenner.
Yeah, and that's it. I think Jipper actually touched on that, I think, when he first started playing. And I think, look, I think at the test match level, I don't know how many times we talked around Sam Cane and his efficiency at the first 3 rucks and how many rucks he hits and being able to get that right. So, you need someone that's able to do that. And I think, the players that we have kind of touched on that do play that traditional 7 for a long time know those idiosyncrasies of what it is to be a flanker. And that's not what the Crusaders have asked of Leicester. They've been able to get him in with the ball carrying, been able to get over there, try to get over the advantage line, had the variety of his skill set to be able to try and open that attack. That's been the reason why they've had Leicester out in the loose forward trio. But I think what the South Africans do so well with that is because Esterhuizen, is a 12 or 13 that goes into play for the forwards. So I think, to Dave Rennie's point, I think having him as a winger or a centre, I see him in this 23 role, because I think at the moment, with how the wingers are, you've got a Caleb Clark. Now Leicester can start on the left wing, a Josh Smallby, a Will Jordan might be on the right wing, Ruben Love at fullback, or Damian McKenzie at fullback, whatever it may be. I just think Leicester's suited really nicely for that 23 role, to be able to cover all positions, whether it be a forward or at the back, and be able to cover if they want to go to a 6-2 split. That's the way that I see it.
Yeah, and look, I'm stressing, I'm not seeing him as a starting number 7 in Test rugby. Far from it. I'm just saying that it gives them that flexibility to enable them to go with that 6-2 split, that he can come in late in the game and do a job wherever he's required. But and I watched that episode, and Jip, talking about the ability to put pressure on the inside backs of the opposition, all these crafty things that guys like Richie McCaw and Sam Cane and George Smith and David Pocock and these guys all learn, from playing years and years and years there. The craft of being number 7 is very exacting at test level. As I say, it just gives you that flexibility, that ability to put him there late in the test match, last 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe, or on the wing. It just gives you more flexibility with your bench at a time where the bench is just becoming such an important factor in the outcome of rugby matches at whatever the level.
TJ, I think with the South African team, we probably traditionally, as a New Zealand team, we don't usually play a 6-2 split. For whatever reason, in Razor's tenure, I don't even think we played a 6-2 split when he was coach. So I think having the possibility, knowing that we're going to play the South Africans, there might be a 6-2 split, there might be a 7-1 split, having the ability for Leicester to be classed as a forward and to be a back, it might just give us the opportunity to be able to try and experiment with the 6-2 split with Leicester, and the fact that he has played so well for the Crusaders at the number 7 role.
Ardie's always kind of played Ardie, hasn't he? And then they've put other people around him. You kind of get the feeling that that's the way you've got to approach Leicester. You've got to have Leicester playing as Leicester. He might not be something that everyone else is categorised into, and then you put the people around him to allow him to be Leicester.
Well, that's what's exciting about it. It actually has the potential to bring a new dimension. It's certainly brought a new dimension to the way the Crusaders play, because I think they've used him really smartly. They've figured out, okay, what role do we use him in? And I like the fact that he's been effective in traffic, but then you'll see him coming back on an angle, a couple wide of the ruck, or they'll take a couple out of the line out, and he's at centre. They've given him every opportunity to use his incredible skill set, power. It's just those other things that he's brought to the game. I mean, we didn't see so much of it in this last match, but the grubber kicks, the deft little kicks that he's been able to put into the line. So he's still got a back's mentality, but he seems to be able to transform and do not all of the things, but a lot of the things that you require of a number 7. Now, this is Super Rugby. Let's not lose sight of that. And Test rugby, particularly against the Springboks, it's a totally different beast. But I think there is the potential there just to be a bit of a game changer, just to change the mix, the balance a little bit. But we've always been innovators in New Zealand, and there's been a sense maybe in recent years that we've become followers to a degree. Well, maybe here's something that can, you know, be an innovation.
If you compare him to Esdays, it's such a different model.
You know, I actually ended up playing one game with him with the Barbars back in the day, and actually has a really good skill set. But getting into his thought process was around, how can I win the collision? How can I get over the gain line? So you can see how that would be able to jump into and being a loose forward, to be able to win contact, being able to know what that looks like, considering that's his mindset. He always wants to get over the advantage line. So yeah, I think like we've kind of touched on here, it just opens up a different way of being able to use Leicester and having a 6-2 split, which I think we haven't been open-minded as much as other teams in the world to use a 6-2 split. And you have a guy like Leicester who can cover multiple positions and play well. I know it's Super Rugby, but you know, it might have a question now for that coaching group that it's a genuine chance to have a 6-2 split with how Leicester and what he can bring with his qualities.
I think there was a tendency last year when he was playing at centre, particularly on the tour, that he almost took it on himself that he had to be the guy to break through a tackle. And many times he was just going hard into contact or trying to beat players. And maybe, you know, there were players outside him that he could have moved the ball on. And look, it was all born of the best intentions, that I'm the guy who's got to try and make a difference. And I just think somehow, either on the wing or as the Crusaders have used him, that it kind of harvests the strengths of his, or harnesses the strengths of his game.
The freedom.
Whereas at centre, it's an incredibly difficult position, obviously, to be good at, particularly at the really top level. And you know, I'm not sure whether they would see him there anything other than a late impact role.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think you can see him starting at left wing, or but used off the bench as an impact in those other roles.